Hey there! Welcome back to my house building journey. Today, we've got a lot to tackle. Disassembling the formwork from the foundation beam, laying an EPDM membrane, installing the sill plate, and getting the floor beam in place. It's another step closer to making this dream home a reality. So, let's jump right in. Before we dive into today's work, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. It's the best way to stay updated on every step of this house building journey and not miss any of the exciting progress. Alright, first up, I'm removing the formwork from the foundation beam. The concrete isn't fully set yet, but it's solid enough to move forward with the next steps. I purposely started this process the day after a cold night, knowing the concrete wouldn't be too hard, which made it much easier to unscrew those long screws. Trust me, once the concrete fully cures, getting those screws out would be a nightmare. Now, I left the formwork for the floor beam pillars untouched for a good reason. There's still a risk they could collapse if the concrete hasn't gained enough strength. So, patience is key here. Sometimes waiting a bit longer saves a lot of trouble later. Here's my floor beam pocket. To be honest, when I was putting together these formworks, I didn't really think it through. Now, trying to remove the boards is proving to be a real challenge. Lesson learned. Always plan ahead. Future me would have appreciated it. In some spots, the concrete is so thin and not fully cured that I ended up breaking it in a few places while working. But no worries. It's nothing that can't be easily fixed later. These small setbacks are just part of the process. Sometimes it feels like building a house isn't so much about building. It's more about cleaning up and constantly moving things around. Just look at this. I'm now hauling away the boards from the foundation beam formwork that I was assembling just a few days ago. But hey, that's how it goes in this process. Since the concrete hasn't fully hardened or cured yet, I took the opportunity to smooth the surface and round off the corners. This extra step is crucial to prevent the EPDM membrane from tearing or getting damaged when it's laid on top. I'm checking the level of the foundation beam now, and the maximum difference is less than 5 mm. That's well within my expectations, so I'm satisfied with the result. When I was polishing the concrete after pouring, I missed one spot. I only noticed it after disassembling the formwork. To fix it, I'm using a special concrete mix. It's much stronger, cures faster, and has a very liquid consistency, which allows it to fill all the small gaps and holes perfectly. While disassembling the floor beam pocket formwork, I accidentally damaged it a bit. To repair it, I'm using the same special concrete mix as before. Its strength and liquid consistency make it perfect for filling in and fixing these kinds of issues. My foundation beam is ready, so now I'm measuring the exact spot for the floor beam pocket. I'm planning to make it slightly bigger to allow for some extra room during installation. I need to cut a few of the concrete blocks. When I was laying the foundation walls, I already anticipated that this section would require some adjustments later on. I'm also adjusting the depth of the pocket. I started with a regular concrete disc, but then switched to a specialized concrete polishing grinder. It worked much more efficiently and provided a much smoother finish. The pillars needed some adjustments as well. When I was pouring them, I didn't account for the depth and size of the floor beam support. The specialized steel floor beam levelers added a few extra millimeters, so I had to adjust the height of the posts accordingly. To make my life easier, I've stretched a string between the floor beam pockets. This will help me align the pillars at the correct height, ensuring everything stays level and in place. After leveling everything, I drilled holes for the beam support to ensure a solid and secure installation. The steel reinforcement was a bit too long and wasn't fully covered with concrete. To prevent any corrosion and ensure it lasts longer, I applied an anti-rust layer on top of the exposed sections. Everything is set, so now it's time to install the beam bracket that will connect the floor beam with the concrete pillars. I used epoxy glue for a strong bond. While placing the bracket on the post, I made sure to level it against the beam pockets to ensure perfect alignment. When the job is done, this is how it all comes together. Now this step is super important, laying the EPDM membrane on top of the concrete foundation wall. It's a key barrier to keep moisture out and protect the wooden structure. But before that, it's important to clean the concrete. I swept up the foundation beam to remove any debris. I didn't record it, but I also applied a concrete primer on top of the foundation to ensure better adhesion for the EPDM. I was using a membrane with 2 butyl tapes to keep it in place, and I also bought an EPDM spray, which works like a primer or EPDM glue. As always, I have some tips for you, based on my own mistakes. This was the first time I worked with such material, so I was learning as I went. The general approach was good. I used the butyl tape on one side, then stretched the membrane a little and glued the next side. However, EPDM is very flexible, and I didn't pull it tight enough. Another thing I should have done is wait a bit longer after gluing one side of the EPDM, so it would have adhered better. Next up, I'm installing the sill plate. This is what connects the foundation to the wooden frame of the house. And yes, there's always that moment where you double check everything to make sure it's perfectly squared. Mistakes here are not an option. I already knew that my foundation walls were slightly out of square, so I decided to measure everything one more time. My plan was to identify the correct inside corners and position the sill plate accordingly for a precise fit. Like many times before, Working alone can be quite challenging. I had to get creative to handle everything by myself. I placed a screw into a small board and secured it with a concrete block. This setup allowed me to pull out the measuring tape and get accurate measurements without any help. To mark the corners, I used a permanent white marker to make small dots. Then, I stretched a mason's line and placed spacers underneath it. This way, the string was a few millimeters above the EPDM membrane, giving me a clear guide for the exact placement of the sill plate. I knew it would be better to have permanent lines to follow, so I decided to use a chalk line. I've never used one before, but it looks so easy on YouTube. Well, let's just say it didn't go as planned. Why? First, I pulled the chalk line at an angle that wasn't exactly 90 degrees, so the line ended up in the wrong spot and wasn't straight. Second, when I was laying the EPDM membrane earlier, I hadn't stretched it tight enough. As a result, the membrane was a bit loose, and the chalk line moved along with it. Another mistake was on my longer wall. I should have divided it into 2 sections and snapped the chalk line in 2 shots instead of trying to do it all at once. With all these issues, only 1 chalk line came out usable. The rest turned into a learning experience. In the end, I had to rely on the dots I marked in the corners and the mason's string as my guides. And finally, the big moment has arrived. I get to place the very first piece of wood and officially start building my house. I've been waiting for this moment for such a long time, and now it's finally here. It feels incredible to take this first step. I started with the sill plate. To ensure a better seal, I added a layer of foam underneath it. This extra step will help create a tighter, more secure fit between the wood and the foundation. And hey, if you're enjoying this journey as much as I am, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot and helps me keep sharing these milestones. Plus, there's so much more to come, and I'd love to have you along for the ride. I used 3 pieces of wood to create one strong floor beam. I secured everything together with structural screws to ensure it's solid and durable. When planning how to assemble everything, I decided to go with a floating setup. This means that none of the wooden elements would be attached to the foundation until all the floor joists are ready and in place. The idea seemed good, but it also meant that my sill plate wasn't sitting flat on the foundation walls. So, whatever adjustments I made at this stage turned out to be pointless. I spent an hour adjusting the height and leveling the floor beam against the sill plate, only to realize I'll need to redo this step after anchoring the sill plate to the foundation wall. Progress is looking good, and I'm thrilled to see this coming together. If you're enjoying following along, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. It really helps me keep these videos going. Go on, hit that like button. It's the easiest job on the construction site. Thanks for watching and being part of this project. I'll see you in the next one, where we'll keep building and moving closer to a self-sufficient home. Take care and happy building.